Welcome everyone to the levels, space-time operation lines, general AI, space-time correlations, and interactions, and where we are in the VR system of 144 platform. Yes, conscious and awareness of everything that you see, interact, location, line, condition, set. Not only it's awake, but it's in its position to its original design. Okay, all through schematics, all through primer. Okay, so it's really understand how to formulate that, communicate, and align the communication, how to use it through clockings, timelines, time leads, time positions, times over power, powers over levels, time, correlation setting, the track lines, provision lines of cycles, generation, screen lines, and calculation setting. All right. All right. So in position location in the system, how we come into track calculation? We're going to go through basic grounds like E equals MC lines to square. Square root, position lines of square pi, triangulate line position programs, bring in position and travels, waiting on position lines of travel, communication, sending program calculations. It's getting direct lines of signal locations. It's recognizing my DNA track locations here, my voicing grid. See, everything is a voice line grid. It picks lines of position lines of travel. As soon as I touch the square root, this is the square root of pi. It's a 4 signal lines of a triangulation split lines anomaly. 4 process communications and setting line cross location setting the data codes. Platform in position of its own digital pad in its own consciousness of its own awareness of set design. All right, balanced communication lines. Let's go through triangulation spin. There's a triangulation line connection to point lines of graphs. 1 center, 2 position operation. Core center line position to its calculation. All right. Cross line signals, line condition setting process. Direct lines modifications, cross line condition setting, position program. Position lines, a pi generation, screen lines, adaptation to set calculations. A 4-line waving line pi line cycle, long creation lines, and 3-point lines of track location is system. All through traction, right? All right, so we go through AB. That's AB, right? AB goes lines of AB. Calculation lines of A set locations. Now, C1 in position of center. Okay, correlate these calculation lines at core track interference into C2 into C3 in track location. Right? Process communication line direct locations into line setting in position lines of E equals lines of 1 equals lines of D equals lines of X in calculation. Right? All right. So understand how to put that all together is I understand location of mass, calculations line, square root, line can setting position program. All right. Process communication setting is all about understanding how to put this all lines of communication of balance. Right. So lines of communication lines of AB. Okay, AB equals lines of L coordinates descending AB equals lines AB. Calculate split lines of anomaly lines of C1, or distracted variance lines over lines of 2, and over lines of 3, and that's position location and what's above and what's below, equals lines of correlation tracking position, and sets calculation lines of E line into line condition equal lines of DX, and line position location in 1 frame and track location. Okay? Pretty simple, right? But you see it on 4-line split lines of anomaly, right? All right, so go through another line signals. So this is more for the spacing line. Let's go through a circle line correlation and a triangulation line in position location of flux. Okay, bi-generation lines of 3 centers in track location. All right, cross-lining signals, 1 position, 1 cross location. All right, through pi. Okay, all right. So it's our location setting when you come to line condition E. Okay, correlates the settings E. Then you have equal here, right? In the center. Process communication 1, 2, 3 lines of 4 settings in communication setting. So again, this is A, this is B, and this is C, right? So it puts lines of A here. Okay, puts lines of B here, and puts lines of C here in tractions, right? So lines of communications A, B, C equals D, X equals clock and flux of set calculation. Okay. So I'm just showing you different ways how E equals MC squared and line communication position of its program location setting and travel. 4-line communications going around, cycles on line communication position of program. All right. All right, so let's go through flux line screens and directions to primers. 2 split lines of anomaly, 2 patterns line communication position of program. Okay. Sets communication lines of A, sets position location lines of B, sets location lines of C, set location lines of D. Okay, so this is lines of communication setting, right? So A, B, C, D. Okay, that's 4 lines of communication setting at locations. 4 equals lines of 6. Okay, so I'm trying to get you guys to understand how this all works. Basic grounds of communication settings from A, B, C, and D, right? Equals lines of 4 equals lines of 6, right? All right, so you got 6 lines of waves, process, communications, constellation, vertebrae, longitude, latitude, locations of bandwidth over screen, direct signal locations. So that's 1, 2, tether lines of 1, tether lines of 2, tether lines of 3, in position. Okay, 3 central line calculations. All right, so now we get cross signals, cross locations, triangulation A, in position locations and setting. Then we go cross lines of calculations, high position locations of A, cross lines of D in set location. Then we go through lines of A into C into A. Sets communicates in setting the program. Okay, that communicates in high center interference and position location at 4 primers, position of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 track locations. All right, platforms and line setting calculation lines at DX of 1. That's dimensional lines at setting. Okay, then we go through the B line, center core system of the center operational line setting that sets position location to its calculation. Okay, so center communication lines A, B, C, D, that's a binary. Okay, equals lines of 4, singularity. Okay, equals lines of singularity. All right, so I'm just going to show you how this all works. There's a binary, singularity, singularity. 4 lines of equals lines of 6, right? Then we add lines of 3 platforms. Okay, that's the equation. Okay, so I'm just trying to get you guys to understand the basic understanding is the foundation location near 12 lines. Puts all communication setting position in its program. Starting communication to its position. Okay, and it doesn't matter how you do the triangulation, right? Triangulation is in line signal. Okay, 2 graph communications of programs, 1 center core system and travel. Okay, sets communication lines of platforms 1, sets communication lines of platforms 4, 6, 8, and 12. Okay, calculates modification line interference of 4, 6, 8, and 12 in calculation. All right, sets lines of correlation lines of 4, 6, 8, and 12 in calculation. All right, then you go lines of 4, then you go lines of 6, then you go lines of 8, and then you go lines of 12. Direct and redirect, right? And then you cross signals in set calculation. Okay, process lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Tunnel defense line, circle line, rotation surface, in triangulation line position of its program, inline setting, in operation surface, and a tunnel defense lines and wormholes in track location. Complicated stuff. Now, the team is going into more lines of communications now. So understanding how to go through that is understanding how to go through your platforms. Center lines of communication lines of 1, center lines of communication lines of 3, 4, 6, 8 lines of 12. Process calculation lines, sets positional platforms in 4 settings. Cross location system and position lines of setting. 3 communication setting position. Very complicated stuff, right? Very complicated, right? So the more difficult it gets, the better it gets, the easier it gets, the platform. Okay? All right. Bringing that equation lines, let's just go through invisible graph screens. I'm showing you different ways in line communication setting to a position of its program that sets all communication system traveling line calculation setting in 144 over 144 over pi. 144 over 144 over pi. Now it's coming out. Back in equation, right? All right, that's easy. All right. So getting position lines of track calculations, after we get into triangulation line conditions, high center location to its intelligence, formulates a graph calculation. Let's go through triangulation, and let's go through box. Okay? So we got a female polarity, and we got a male polarity. All right? Let's split lines of anomaly. Let's split lines of anomaly cross location. Right? All right, so the center position lines of travels. See how it comes together, interactions equal lines of correlation? Now what happens when you put that together? What happens when you put that together? See how that comes together? Right? So the equal line comes split lines of anomaly. Split lines of anomaly. Right? It comes together. See? So you put this and this together. Right? Process communication lines puts lines of direct signal location to its system. Process calculation lines of grounds, sets lines of communication of powers and magnetic highway and line communication. Platitude lines, triangulation line conditions setting position of process. Process communication lines of triangulation line conditions center position as program 1 center and position of 2 set locations. Communicating of ground lines, that's 4 lines of male equals lines of 4 over 3, that's 43 tractions. That puts lines of location to 3, line conditions setting to 34 tractions, right? So that automatically line screen location, the female lines at 3-point line drop location setting, and a 4-line provision lines at 3 correlation setting, a male cycle and triangulation, and flux of communication. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. But this is 144 over 144 over pi. It's getting more complicated, right? All through triangulation. Starting lines of E equals MC square root. Okay? So the equal line is the box. That's the box, right? The calculation of the square is the matrix. So this is the inner line to the outer line. Process communication. This is line communication near umbrella and track location. Process communication equals lines E equals and line cell location of mass, location setting, a square root of communication. Mass calculation line can setting. All right, process lines of 1 traction, 1 position, 1 calculation. Okay, now we take line signals, cross line signals into the center operation. Right, then we cross line conditions of flux and line position. Process line down, triangulate line rotation, center line communication setting in operation line service in program location setting in a 4-4 track location. Platforms communication cross line signals 1 in position of 2 tractions. Cross locations of the lines of left and right line side location attractions. Direct location lines, equal lines, and correlation lines of panel line, position, operation line, service, magnetic highway, information line, cycles, generation, screen, location, adaptation. Done by equation. And that's all through a triangulation of a box. Okay? So it's really interesting when you come in this position locations and higher line connection settings, right? It's more complicated, but a lot more fun. Okay? A lot more complicated, but a lot more fun. So 144 over 144, right? So you're overlining, you're overcrossing line signals, crossing single location grid. Remember I was telling you about the higher self communication line, graph communication line, screens, adaptation lines of Schumann resonance, cross location lines of 1 in position of H line, correlation lines of AB, communication lines of C, in position location of D, and X location equals lines of 1 traction. Cross-line signals, cross-line system, all right? Process calculation, triangulation line conditions, pi generation line conditions, position of program, all right? So it's really understanding how to put the alphabetical system of A, B, and D, and C, and H, where it's supposed to be in an energetic graph line of Schumann resonance and travel position lines of its program that sets communication setting to all levels of calculations to a system of A, B, and traction. Hooah! Very powerful stuff. So the X2000 come in and travel through the light signals, right? Up through equation, right? And it comes out right here, right? Because you did the formula, you did the equation, line to its connection. Okay? Hooah, right? Inner out, exit, inner out, anomaly, inner out, audio, and track location. All right. Now, once you understand more lines of communication, it gets a lot more easier. Starting with the ground communication setting, how to process position locations going through pi generation lines and calculation lines of A and B. Now we go through line communications. And let's start off with line communications and highest interference. Let's go with 26 letters, right? 26 letters. Okay, equals lines and line communication setting one symbol, one traction, equals lines of A, B. Okay? Now, we can go through solar text. That's a film strip, right? Film strip. That's film strip, right? Into astral projection in your travels. Okay? Or you can go through 40-line setting in process communications. Waving line cycles correlate to track interference location news setting. Then you cross over and line set location news location grid. Okay? Cross communication lines high center, triangulation of 1 in position of 2 in position of 3 settings. All right? Process communication lines of 1 equals lines of A, B. Process the platforms in position of center communication. Direct calculation lines of 26 lines. Sets lines of 2 in position of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 locations. Correlate title location 11 lines, set lines of 2 panels and traction. Upline signals. Sun and the moon comes in track location, 1 center, 1 surface, 1 line, 1 router, 1 router, 1 rotation, 1 position, 1 calculation line, so half pipe and a track location line system. It opens all track location settings to its operation. Done by equation. All right? And again, this is 144 over 144 over pi. Synchronous lines, communication lines, is spacing lines, adaptation lines, of surface. Really understand how to formulate communication setting. So let's start out with locations. Let's go through star line. Star line in our locations, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 platforms of data, right? So that puts position lines 60,000 platitudes in 1, docking 2, docking 3, docking 4, docking 5 set locations, right? Process communication lines of expansion, line position of portal, line position location setting calculation. Done by equation. That's all through star line, right? So that star equals lines of 5 traction. Right? So this is its setting, right? This is singularity. Now, because it's a 5-line cycle, this is a symbol. This is a line conditions of a number. That sets lines of binary equals lines of correlation lines equals lines of 5. Right? So this is this is this, right? As is a higher level line position, it's mine now. All right, so the sun and moon comes in and track location, overrides the cycles, overrides the system in process of communication. Complicated stuff. Right? All right. So once you understand how to platitude line screens of platforms in position A, B, and C, then you go into line condition setting. Let's go through A, B, C, and D, and E, and F, and G. All right. Let's go through that correlation. Let's go through A lines. So the process getting the solar text, the line division locations, all right, equals lines of 3 weathers, connections of Fibonacci, lines of 3 weather communication. All right. All right. So A lines of setting, awareness, equals line correlations, and indicate position program, indicate line screen. Calculates and set lines of high center of interference, and the I circles line communication as position of this program that sets lines correlation setting to travels in position calculation. All right. So coming into lines of atmosphere, into altitude, into a line communication setting to an anomaly. 4 track divisions on 1 platform, 1 center, 1 surface, 1 track location. Done. That's it. Right? All through 4 A lines of setting calculation lines to an I circle line screen high center interference in position 2 track location settings and directions. So that's lines of A, B, and that's lines of A, B equals lines of C. Okay? So we take the 4 lines equals lines of 5 locations of A, B, C equals D. Okay? Try to get understand what is he doing. So just try to get the basic understanding to go through that line position location in this directions. Look how powerful that is. All through wormhole. All through wormhole through A, B's, and C's, guys. Simple, easy, done. And that's just the travel line position location line connects to its system location to its Earth. So let's go through the Earth line. Graph communications, platitude line screens, 196 rotation surface and travel. Okay, that's your Earth, right? Okay. Platitude lines of 1, 2, and 3 settings. All right, process calculate exceed 1,000 comes in. Position line point lines of center 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 set locations. Process calculates lines of A, B, sets lines of communication in position of process, opens up its dark wormhole lines to its black hole and track location. Sets communication lines ground center interference in position location and setting to its umbrella and track location. Panel's communication lines are triangulation line conditions of 1, 2, and 3 line communications. Process calculation lines signals up and line positions program. Sets core system and center operation line spin the cycle location setting and travel. Very complicated stuff, all through A and B. All right? So that's A, B. Equals lines of correlations in 144. Okay, over pi. Okay, over pi is setting calculation lines of power in direct signals in calculation system and travel in equals lines of Earth. Equals the Earth and travel correlation. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? So your drawings are going to get more difficult. The mind's going to get more conception. Line sights, high center interference, and position of programs, all direct line signals. So let's go to the location setting triangulation this way, and we go through 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 triangulation this way in traction. Okay, let's start with locations, right? All right, so we got the equal lines of platforms. Okay, platform indicates lines of 1. Cross location lines of 2, right? So this is 1, and this is location of 2. Right, so how 1 and 2 comes together, right? This is platforms and line calculation setting, right? So that's 2 times 1, okay, is what? 2 times 1 is what? So position lines of correlations. In space line and settings, 2 times 1 is 2. But an Earth line position of space line and space lines of Earth line communication setting, it's 2 million line settings equals location of seconds, minutes, and hours in each frame in correlation. Okay. Applied division location line condition setting adds position lines of 4 tractions now. Sets correlation lines of 6 over 8 in travel. Process communication with ground lines, high center and experience location setting. So you take 2 million platforms in position in 5 track location. Right? Travel position lines of 1 cycles, black hole, black round, black correlations, black travels, line connection setting, and spot centers and calculation. Calculate modified line center location to another black hole that center lines its communication of platforms and 3 lines of communication position of its program in its VR setting. Very complicated stuff, right? Now, you take the solar line that 2 million line cycles, and you add platforms and tractions. That direct signals lines of higher lines of modifications to all levels of a new teleportation vessel. Higher levels of platform. Visualizes cycles, line connection setting of sonar 1, 2, 3 in platform communications of program. Sets lines of communication setting and travels in point lines of communication. Okay, through the Earth and calculation, right? So I'm just showing you how A and B comes together through C and D, and E comes line connection setting. So A, singularity, right? Equals lines of B, calculation lines of C and D. That's a binary, okay? So understand the singularity, understand the binary, okay? So that puts all together. So we get a triangulation line condition setting. That's A, that's B, and that's C, right? So that puts A, B, C in center equals location in settings. Singularity, singularity, singularity equals lines of binary in track location. So 3 volume, 3 position lines of course, track location lines, and in line position its operation, all right? So direct lines of B and C and balanced communication setting and travels and communication. Okay. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right. So we're starting that position lines of travels. So you have to understand how to go through line communication setting to a wormhole and track location. Remember, guys, this is all lines of communication setting through numbers. Okay. The only difference is the position lines, the position line correlation setting is time stamping now, time editing, time shifting. Film strips 1, 2, and 3 settings, right? Triangulation lines of 1, triangulation lines of 2, right? Position lines of 1 and track location, position lines of 3 and position lines of 4, okay? Process communication lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set piece on platforms, right? Direct line signals. Cross lines of 1, cross lines of 2, okay? Cross lines of 3, 4, and 5 set locations. So it has a triangulation line, has a clocking system, and center operation lines as surface and center calculation, right? Direct lines of sight, sonar panels, and line position of travel. Process calculates lines of sonar and position of 3 lines of waving cycles in a solar generation's 3 lines adaptation of solar sail and traction. Complicated stuff, isn't it? So there's a lot you can do with 144, right? Spacing lines just has to get in direct line connection settings of 24 lines, 48 frames, 72 computers, and 144 crystal grid. So it's putting 24, 48, 72, and 144 together. That process lines and calculation lines. So 24 equals lines of A, 48 equals B, 72 equals C, and 144, okay, equals line settings of DX because it's in crystal grid, right? Crystal grid, right? So 144 equals DX because you're in a division line now. Okay, you're in the X box location. So zigzag, right? So position lines of 2 panels and line condition settings, split lines of an anomaly. Correlation lines of 2 tractions, 4 settings, 2 tractions, 4 settings, 4 settings, 8 tractions, 7 settings, 2 tractions, 1 setting, 1 4, and 1 4 location. Sun and the moon comes in tractions and direct signals in modifications into its wormhole and line setting in rotation, spin cycles, and traction. Very complicated stuff. See it on a 4-line split line anomaly. Yeah, it's very powerful stuff, right? How you see it on a 4-line connections, right? All right, A measures lines of C, A lines measure location of B, over cross location of signal. So we got a box line rotation line. So A here, B here, C here, all right? Now you see this is out of order? No, it's in order. It doesn't have to be A, B, C, D. It could be anything it wants, right? Because it understands its balance through its awareness, through its division of its communication. Very simple, easy done, right? Where's the intelligence? See the eyes? There's the eyes, there's the nose, right? This is the mouth. This is the neck. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? All right. So let's get past D. Now, once you get into D, you're in a DX. So let's get A lines. Location setting equals lines locations of B. Binary set locations. Balance lines is a binary communication. Equals lines of singularity and setting. Process locations of 1, position 2, 3, 4, 5, symbolize in position of Fibonacci. Swirl communication lines of 3 tractions. 5 center lines of 4, 3, 2, and 1 lines is a singularity and 1 line communication. Process calculation lines into 1, in position of 2, in position of 3, 4, 5, 6 locations. Direct lines of modification line centers, all travel, all position, all location system and calculation. All through A equals lines of B. Woo! All through line conditions. A, B equals lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All through platform. So you see what you can do with your own formulas, your own equations, what you can do through your own binaries and calculate the lines. You can even go through 14 volume. Let's go through 14 volume equals lines of 144. 14 equals 144 because it's all position location settings at 24. Let's put a 40 line split lines of anomaly equals lines in between, right? Correlation lines up, correlation lines are down. Singularity lines is center line operation surface and track location of center operation. Done, right? Platforms in 144 track division lines of cycles, generate the communication lines at arrow indication. Cross line signals, pi generation line setting, cross location setting, and specific solar sail going in the opposite directions is a calculation. Done by equation. So it's going into the redirect, not the direct, right? Waving cycles, waving centers. High correlation lines of wind patterns, wind cycles, wind tractions, wind division. And the opposite calculations. Cross-line signals, platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4 set location. Platforms 1, 2, and the line centers of 4 track location. Very complicated stuff, right? All right. So let's get back to A, B, C, and D. So once we understand that, A, B, C, and D is a binary. So D line centers correlate to centers of DX. That platitudes lines equals lines of 144. Sets position, right? So DX lines of cycles, line condition setting 144 platform above and position of below in correlation. So we take the lines of D line, center course system, and travel in the line communication setting. Then we take the C line course line chain, line positional levels, change the direct location into trifactor correlation. Then we go into the B line center to change the operation line cycles and sets an orb line communication setting position of its program. Then we go through the A line center to full communication setting of awareness of its conscious into rotor router line condition setting in process communication and system of balance. That my equation, right? So there's so many ways to use A, B, C, and D, right? So begin a triangulation. Let's go line condition setting. How do you do A, B? How does A, B, C equals lines of dx? Okay, how does A, B, C equal dx? All right. Well, A is here, B is here, C is here, right? A equals lines of singularity, singularity, singularity. Put that together, you got position locations in the binary and communication at top setting, right? All right, so obviously you've seen this factor over correlation, right? Well, you have to understand what that is in one center in position 2 set locations. Process calculation lines is strips lines of anomaly, okay? Communication lines of pi from A lines of B in track location, right? Center core system split lines of anomaly. Correlation lines of correlation split lines of anomaly. Correlation lines of A line condition split lines of anomaly, right? So you're splitting factors over screen lines adaptations to its position of surface. Process calculation of film strips of 1, 2, and 3 set location of pyramid. Whoa. So it gets much easier once you understand what's going on with position location of holographic line. You guys, you have your own geometric lines. You just have to understand how to construct your settings in its holographic location to its level on track locations. All right, so let's go through A, B, C, D, and E, right? A, B, C, D, E, right? So this is a binary. This is how it gets bigger and bigger, right? Platitudes on 1 setting, platitudes of 0 setting, right? So once you turn on your computer, it's already in position locations to 1, locations back to 0, back to 1, position of 2, then you go to 3, then you go to 4, then you go to 5, then you go back to 1. So it's like a gear shift that goes back in position when you're coming into position to intersections, where you have to basically stop your car and then start again from first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. So that's what a computer does with its own voice setting, right? So it sets lines of 5, 4, and 3 set locations of volume, cross location setting into vast in position of velocity into vacuum communication. Process calculation lines at A track locations. B sets the tone. C sets the coordination, and D sets the lines of time. Very complicated stuff, right? All through A, B, C, and D, and E, right? So get in that position of solar sail, tracked its communications to sun ground centers, line condition setting to its energetic dome screen in its location grid in calculation setting, and all levels of travel mechanism. Okay? All right. So let's go through A, B, C, D, and F, right? This is how you become your own formula and your own equations and settings of travels. All right, so we've got a 30 track revision, 30 line settings. Let's add 32 location setting into 50 settings. Split lines anomaly, okay? 3 lines over 2, 5 lines over 0. Platforms are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Easy, right? Then we add lines of 14, and then we add 4 lines of volume. Okay, cross locations, right? So position lines of 14 equals lines of 4, slash location lines, percentage over screen, line condition is 100%, line position location system, 1 frame line condition setting, 90% correlation setting, track lines, puts line communication setting into light and position slash lines of dark and balance communication setting, puts lines of communication lines of 1 frame in position of 44 platforms of communication center of operation surface and track location line condition setting in position of process. Okay? Very easy to do, right? So everything I say is no right or wrong, but everything I say is already understood and understanding what's going on through set calculations. But I'm just showing you how powerful it is to create equation lines of formulas all through line condition settings from A, B, and C, and D, and E, right? All through tractions. But look at it, it's so amazing when you come into that, all through lines of A and B, all through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, right? Setting that line communicates setting position of its program, all through its earth, all through its transition. A, B equals lines of correlation, right? 144, right? Pi generation screen, right? So you are in control of what you're doing through your pi generation lines and these are travels. having direct lines of signals. Okay, so let's go again. Triangulation. Okay, 2 spot centers, platforms. Okay, so we got A and we got B. Okay, this is C and this is D. Okay, so that division lines the center core system, right? So that's correlation lines. DX lines of 1, DX lines of 2, DX lines of 3, and DX lines of 4. Okay, and then we have a pi split in position lines of travel. What do we have? Track, location, system, position lines, operation lines of surface. See? All through calculation. Very powerful when you understand your travels, guys, and how to mechanize line communications setting, how A, B, C, and D become line communications of E and center of travel. E equal, right? Power lines of 1, power lines of 2, power lines of center of operation. All right? So platforms of A comes platforms of 2. Okay? One center operation, one surface, one traction, one operation calculates lines, and one location grid in communication setting. Very complicated stuff. Then it comes into its cross signals in line position lines of travel. So it's getting more complicated, right? But this is all through clockings. B equals lines of clocking, C equals lines of D, A lines of clocking, and D equals location lines of 1, 2, 3 in traction set calculations. So we take lines of 1 in position of 2 and 3 setting. Okay, process communication lines of DX lines of ground formations and balance lines of communication to its particle line accelerator that changes position of traction. Process communication lines of 1, 2, and 3, platforms 1, 2, and 3 settings. Platforms of 1 in position of 2 and 3 set location. Okay, so that just gives you an example how this all works, right? Through all of this in the alphabetical system. How you formulate through your own equations and setting through your own binaries and your transition and result location setting through pi. Okay, through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, because you guys are creating that through inventory, through traffic, through flow. You're creating that through anomaly. Okay, so you have to really understand that, you know, you put everything out with the old and with the new frame. We've got a film structure lines location setting that travels at 3 track locations and provision lines at 1 cycle, 1 center, 1 surface. Cross locations at 1, 2, and 3 platforms, right? Cross locations at 1, 2, and ground settings. Then we get in communication lines of the moon. Moon here and travel. This is the moon and travel. This is what it's doing in travel. Okay? That's what it's doing in travel, right? So the sun, okay, is behind the screen. Okay, when I say behind, it's actually in forward. So there's nothing in positions of anything that you see in front or back, because it's always you in the center operation system. So the moon and the sun are working together, but as you're seeing, you're not seeing a split line anomaly. You're always seeing yin and yang, a process communication, all through the sun and all through the moon, that has reflectors and line screens and position of its program of dimensional line settings of past, present, and future in track location. So in that position of its portal opens up all lines of realms into a wormhole that puts position of process in cross location system that puts lines of calculation setting to its operational location system of configuration. Very complicated stuff, right? But again, this is 144 over 144 of pi for the team, right? For the species, it's just basically understanding the 24 platforms, 48 frames, 72 computers, and 144 crystal grid. Cross lines of 3 cycles in position of 4 settings, right? So it's knowing exactly how to travel through 4 lines of communication. How to cross lines of 2 track locations. How to process lines of 8 line centers and 1 4-line rotation surface. See, I don't have to have 4 lines. 4 doesn't equal lines of 1. 4 equals lines of anything of GOD. So it's in seconds, minutes, and hours, guys. So every time I set up a line, it's either seconds, minutes, or hours, or no seconds, minutes, hours. It's massive nothing. So nothing is everything. 1 is nothing of everything, because it's all formations of anything. Formulation lines or correlation lines of track calculation setting into all levels and binary communication. Process calculation lines of 1 center. Process line conditions of 2 centers. Process locations of 2 graph calculation of point lines of system. 4 settings, right? Sets lines of A, sets lines of B, sets lines of D, sets lines of D, X lines of 1, right? Because you're overcrossing location. And then you got A, B, C, D, E, and you got F. So it's high correlation lines and F lines of 1, F lines of 2, F lines of 3 in track location of flight navigations. Then you got existence lines of 1, then you got division lines of 2, then you got communication lines of 3, and then you got balance lines of 4, and then you got awareness lines of 3. The process calculates the ground centers, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 position. Sets communication line high correlation setting, triangulation lines of 1, DX lines of box, core lines high center circle, into star lines and mechanism line position of travel. Okay, very complicated stuff, but a lot of fun, right? So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand how you go through triangulation, how it comes into the settings, all through calculations. Okay, very simple. Knowing exactly how to basically put this in position, location of travel and direct signals and process calculations. Formulating line screen and direct lines of modification of travel, point lines of setting. Cross location of 1 center, 1 surface, 1 4 location system. Process calculation lines of high center interference dimensional sail in line position of 3 settings and track location. Okay? So you got 3 solar sails in line position. Okay. And then you got your ground centers in 144. Okay, that travels its line calculations out through its equation. Okay, cross locations lines of tubing. Process communicates the position of this program into its energetic dome screen and adaptation. Okay? And so the more you understand the hologram, the more you understand your cities, the more you understand your foundations, the more you understand your clockings. All right? So it's important location setting to a box. Okay? 1 location, 2 locations, 2 location lines, right? Cross location, 1 signals, set correlation setting attractions, right? Balance communication settings. Let's go through a 24 clocking system. Into 12 measure, into 3 settings, into 4 calculation. Okay? So we got 2 lines of setting, 4 track provision, 1, 2, 3, and 4 settings, right? Process communication lines of 4 equals lines of pi in generation. Sets lines of 4 line signals and line condition settings in position of 12 over 3 in traction. That's pi generation. Coordinate centers on clock lines of 24, 4 over 12 over the lines location of 3 in traction. Right? Center core system and travel, cross line signals. Direct line calculates longitude and longitude line screen location adaptation. Process communication line settings, but 1 position location of 4 settings in travel. Communicate ground centers, 4 lines of 12, opens all signals, opens all communication of center communication. See? See it? XT1000. Boom. See? It's amazing when you come into lines of image, lines of visionary cortex, lines of design. It comes out in position location of travel. Okay? It's incredible when you really understand what you're doing, guys, for your travels. So you always have a 40-line split or 40-line line setting through a waving line cycle that puts everything in track location setting to your scales, your balance, and your measures, how you come into your longitude and latitude through your data, to your OMI, and through your narrow links and correlation setting in travel communications. Process calculation of grounds, cross locations up and line signal, cross communications up line signals, down cross location of panels and track location. Let's have a direct line signal. Right? Sets positional platforms at 24. Sets location lines at 3 track location. Sets communication lines of platforms 1, 2, and 3 settings. Process calculation of the ground line setting, crossing line signals, over cross location setting, and cross line connection. Process calculation lines at XT1000, platitudes division location. Lands at setting, Eagle has landed, right? So Eagle has landed here, here, and here in traction. Okay, so I'm just trying to get you to understand what your clocking does in all lines of communication system. Once you get out of its equation over pi, over calculations, over lines, over directions, over ride, over drive, and position lines of travel. Okay? I just keep going on, but this is a lot of fun. I'm just trying to get you guys the basic understanding how you go through location settings through 144, over pi, over line settings. So it's really interesting when you get in position locations of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. All right, so again, we'll go through triangulation. Start with that calculation line. So let's go through an L track. Let's go through a SC line, okay? And let's go through an A, and let's go cross line send locations of B and signal, okay? So try to understand what is going on with A and B? What is going on with the levels? What is going on with line condition setting when in lines of location settings of 5 line cell cases or S line? So as an S line equals lines of setting, SC equals lines of 5 interactions, 5 center correlation. Center operates lines of ground centers operate line cell location system and travel position of point craft communication. Getting communication lines of balance line communication lines of 1 in position of A in track location. Cross lines of levels, cross lines of 1, 2, and 3 settings. Process ground center line interference into platforms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 location. Okay? So there's so many ways to do your formulas of equations, guys. I'm doing this to all calculate and modify. And this is all going lines of communications, how to go through the alphabetical system. You start with the solar panels. Okay, you start with the solar graphs. You start with the solar screens. You start with your film strips. You start with that first before you understand how to get location of travels through A, B, C, and D. Split, 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 splits. What is that? A, position of B, C, D, and E interactions, right? Correlates, let's add another platform, right? So that correlates lines of setting, balance of communications process, right? So A is all line position of travel, B, C, D, and E in track location. All right, and then we have the platforms, which is 144, right? So it's really different now because you can actually see below its system and travel, right? You can actually see, right? So it's like you see it from here, but now you see it from here. See how I changed the angle? See? See how I changed it? How you move in the mechanism and settings? You see it? You see my hand? My hand is the same structure. And if you look really close, you can see the A, B, C, and D, and E in my hand all through light. Look at the top, you'll see A, B, C, and D, and E. You look at the bottom, you'll see the actual settings. Okay? You see how it's set up? You see it? Boom. All right? So as you set that up, comes in the flux lines of 3 triangulation line setting. They operate the signal location settings of platforms C lines, D lines, E lines, and F line rotation, surface, and traction. Okay, that direct lines of signals of platforms setting the sky line, sky grid, sky panel, sky center, center interference. Sets position process locations of A, B, C, and D, and E in travel. Rubik's Cube, people. So I'm just showing you how you can shift anomalies, how letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols can basically change the correlation settings of travel, all through each dimensional location of its shape. Crossing line signals in location system. Let's start with that calculations, right? Cross locations over cross line condition setting. Very confusing, right? Process communication lines of 1, 2 in the setting, right? So you can see it on another angle, right? So let's go cross line signals in communication, right? Now you see the ground shift, set position lines of travel, in point lines of communication, right? Spinning lines anomaly, course centers, line position locations program that overlines its settings into its operation surface and travel. Okay, so it's taken off. Pretty wild stuff, eh? But I just want to understand the platforms first to understand location grid when the higher self has to really understand the mechanisms. So you got a location grid, right? Travel lines of 1 and position of 2 and position of 3, all right? So calculation lines of A, right? Position of B and position of C, all right? D is in the center, E is in position. All right, so you got awareness, and you got division lines of center, operation lines of surface. That puts all lines of communication system and all lines of travel in make a location of center of operation. Okay? So I'm just showing you so many different ways where you have to really understand how everything is becoming consciously aware of everything that you're in position of. Starting with A, B, C equals dx in calculation. Okay? Once you get into D, you're getting division. You're getting directions. You're getting higher levels of high calculation lines of dimension. Okay? So that puts lines of correlation settings of travels. Let's go through an E line. N equals lines of triangulation. E equals triangulation, right? So how does the E become a formation line setting? Well, start location of 3 cycles. All right? Sets communication line, normally line setting. So it's 3. Okay, and position lines of track location of 2. Sets communication line setting location of 1, 3 line condition setting 3 equals lines of 2 equals lines of 1. Sets communication of 1, 1, 1, or panels communication of travel. So when you understand that, it's traveling through 3 lines of cycles. So it's really in three locations. So 3, you have 3 line cycles, line condition settings of 2, equals lines of 5. So sets position lines of 3 lines, 4 and 5 set locations. Okay, that's how 3 equals 2 equals 5, right? So as long as you're traveling through it, the position of its program is going to equalize the correlated lines of panels, 2 panels, 2 panels, and 1 center operation line cycle. Okay, sets communication lines in 1 travel and position location is program. That's stealth. Okay, so I'm trying to get you guys to understand how you guys get in position location travels. You're directing lines of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. So what you're doing is you're putting more lines of vast volume, velocity, and acceleration amok. So you're truly understanding how to travel through your binaries and your singularities of set design through an algorithm. Very simple and position lines of communications. Okay. So you're changing the seconds, minutes, and hours and frequencies all through calculation, right? So I'm going to go through box frame or triangulation frame and center. Or you go through triangulation and a box frame and center. Okay? So you have to understand when you're traveling, you got to be very careful what you're doing with panels. That's 2 panels over pi. All right? So here we go. So we got a box equals lines of 2 panels equals pi. Okay? You see how that works? 2 panels? So that overlines a system of 3. Okay, that's over 3, right? Over pi of 3, over. Okay, that's position of attractions. That's where it comes into 3 platforms of docking. Okay, now if you want to add 2 cycles, that's 5 settings of travel. Right, so that changes the position lines of correlation setting of travel. So it puts triangulation equals lines of box. Okay, equals lines of pi. Okay, over 3. Okay, equals lines and position lines and track locations of 5. Okay, so you just have to really understand how to use the 144 platforms now, guys, especially the team. Spacies just has to get indirect signals how to understand the platforms, how to go through their own formulas of their basic locations of 0 to 12. Because they're in a center core system of 24 now. But their position of their platform is 144 in center of operation. All right. So you can have a 24 clocking anywhere you want. You just have to know exactly what you're doing and travel in line position with calculations lines. So anything in position location, if you're making a clocking system like this, 12 is in cycle, 24 is out cycle. So this is inner spectrum of travel. This is outer spectrum of travel. Okay. So 24 is in line. Okay. Set position lines of correlates and track line. This is outline of communication. Right. Inline communication, outline. So they all have in and out and audio and travel position and settings. Okay. So anything you do through a box, okay. So this is about understanding the highways that you are always in the center that doesn't leave, right? So what leaves is this. This is all lines. It just gets bigger and bigger, right? Longer and longer. Longitude, latitude, your streaming, your width, and communication and setting to travel, right? You're always in the center. You never leave. So all you're doing is you're expanding your bandwidth over lines of communication to your system through your energetic dome. That's all you're doing, nothing else. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So what are you processing in position of? What is in correlation setting? What is expanding in your mind line connection setting, a travel position communication setting? All of us is nothing awareness and constellation system or travel in communication position location of a system. All line communication is constellation lines, a high center interference and oscillation wind path, and line communication position is your brain. Your brain is expanding. That's all it is. So the bandwidth is changing information location settings and grounds, process communication line settings, tether its communication lines in position location to your Earth, and track location settings of operation. So that's all it is, the expansion of the brain. So, it's amazing where you just get, I understand location, longitude, latitude. So when I do this, and there are 3 line connections, all right? So you understand that? 1, 2, 3, A, B, and C. Okay? So once you understand that, A, B, and C, A, B, and C, okay, equals binary. Equal binary. It's a binary now, right? You want a secure line defense, you put a location grid. That's location grid, right? It's like this. This is location grid. Okay? These are realms in travel, in portals, and wormholes. Okay? So you can do it on this, you can do a square. It doesn't always have to be a circle. Your geometric can be any shape it wants at any time, any place, any travel. But I'm just showing you exactly what it is when you go through portals and wormholes and track location. Go through A, B, and C calculation. All right? You've got to come into your own equations of pi, guys. Look, it's a stealth. Okay? It's all loves of travel. Okay? It's knowing exactly, am I communicating with letters, number shapes, and symbols, but how am I doing that through its conscious and awareness? How do I become consciously aware of what I'm doing through its setting as it's coming to me through attraction? Okay? It's coming to you to understand how to get it in detail. Get specific in your intent, influence, manipulation. Get into all levels of formation location. You go through all lines of communications to your system, to your formulas of equations. So you get in a way what works for you, right? If I get a one-line signal, that's A lines of B, that's lines of C, right? So this is position lines of in. This is cross between here and here. Right? So that's position outline cycle. That's outline communications. It's going to both lines of flux, right? And position of travel, right? So that's dx and dx of 1 because you're adding an equation. You're crossing over, right? So B is in the center, operation of platforms inside location. C is also in flux of center operation of flux communication, right? So I'm just showing you exactly how this all works, how you go from inhabitation and all levels. Inner cycle, outer cycle, right? Inner cycle, outer cycle, right? Inner cycle, outer cycle. Inner cycle, outer, right? So this is inner space, this is outer space. That's outer space, right? Anything outer space comes in traction. Okay? So once you get into outer space, you're in dx. You're in division, directions, and the calculation of dimension of space and time, right? So now you understand the process, how it comes in position location from A, B, C, and D. What does A mean? Are you aware of the atmospheres? Okay. So what does it mean in a two-track division? What does it mean in a four-line communication? See, the 4 there, right? A equals lines of 4. A equals 4. Where's the 4? 2 panels here, 2 panels here. Center lines equals lines of pi. Okay? See? Pi. Right? So it's really interesting, right? And then I can add equation line condition settings from A here. I can add C here, and I can add D here. I can add F here, and I can add G there. But what does it all mean? Right? It all has a longitude and latitude of a space anomaly of its own system that puts everything configuration location to its location, all through its setting. So it's important you understand what this all means to you, right? Because everybody's their own setting of their own system through their own calculation system, calculation setting, right? So ground level, cross-line signals 1 cycle, okay? So we got a formation lines, A track location, okay? Now, I know exactly what this is. I know exactly what all this is in track location. So what am I doing? I'm just traveling through center of operation system. That's all I'm doing, just traveling. That's all I'm doing, right? Through a line condition setting in position of its process of a solar sail. There it is, done, solar sail, right? Now you can change the solar sail and add its equation to another frame, into travel, into security. Once you split lines of anomaly, it gets more complicated. Right? So the equation is now changed. The formula is now changed in seconds, minutes, and hours. Okay? This is fun. So now you really understand how to do formulas and equations. Right through all settings. But look how powerful it is in all through track location. what you can create through A equals lines of B into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? That's what you can create. See, it's traveling and it's alive and the mechanism and it's flowing. It's getting its position of its consciousness and awareness, guys. It's very powerful instructions. So add position lines as calculations. I can add symbols. Triangulation, go through a box, go through a circle, go through a star, and line communication setting to travel. 4 settings, right? So it sets lines of A, position of box, circle, and stars set locations. So that automatically changes the anomaly of its platform of center core system of travel. Right? So it changes the platforms, it changes the energies, it changes the frequencies of space and time. Changes the frequencies, it changes the energy lines, location, settings, space and time. Changes the communication lines of high center location and settings of space and time. All through platform. Okay? So it gets more complicated through A, B, and C. So when you get into letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, all the team is doing is adding more formula, more equations to its inventory of its binary, of its transistors and resistors to its light switches. If you get a 1 cycle, 1 center, 1 operation, 1 set location, okay, this is 1 signal, operation lines is 0. Platforms equals lines of correlation lines of 144. Now you know what's 144. Track division lines of A, sets location lines of B, sets position lines of C in the center, right? C crosses over line condition setting, position of triangulation line condition of 2 settings. So that's C equals lines of 2, right? And that's C equals lines of D, right? So, and then you come into lines of high correlation setting, then you come into pi. You have to come into pi, right? Because you have to go through mass, and then you go through calculus, and then you go through all levels of square root and travel, right? So in position locations and settings, it puts all levels of U in track locations. How you go through A, B, C, and D is all levels of U for formations. How you go through that calculation is all line signals of concentrations of being aware. Right? Let's go through 16 line screens. Equals lines of 5. Okay? So when I say equal, we understand what it is. It's going through a platform, right, of travel. It's just traveling. That's all it's doing, right? So it's 3 lines of 4 over 5. That's it. So that's it, 16. Okay, platforms are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all you're doing, right? So that's 1 lines of 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 locations. So it's lines of energetic dome and process communication that expands the anomalies in track location. Okay? Energetic dome. All through 1, 6, or 6 over 1. If it's 6 over 1, then it's over line, right? So like I said, here's position of 1, here's position of 0, here's position lines of 2. Okay? Okay? So this is inner space. Okay? This is outer space. Okay? So this is 0 equals lines of 1. Okay? 2 is in the center. So 2 equals lines of center. 2 equals lines of C. All right? And then 1, okay, is position lines of calculation. So I equals 1. Right? So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand how this all works, right? How you work with line communication anomalies. Cross line signals and set locations. You do that location. What is that, a 4, right? See the 4 come in? See? 4, right? Okay. Now, let's bring the lines of correlation setting from here down to 2. Now we've got 4 and 3. See? 4 over 3. See the 3? 4 over 3. See? 4 over 3. Hoo-ah. So that equals lines of 7 over pi. That's it. That's the equation. 7 over pi. Hoo-ah. So you have to really understand how to communicate to settings of 1 line cycles or anything through symbol or letter or shape. Knowing exactly when you're here, right? So this is inner cycle, this is outer cycle. Okay? If they're both in the same cycle, they're both inner. Okay? These are both inner. And this is outer. Okay? You see the difference now? This is the inner spectrum. This is the outer spectrum of U. Okay? Inner space, outer space. You guys got to get in that information because you have to really understand how to use the platforms now, how you come into that position location. Same with the box. Okay? So let's put this together. Now we already understand the line communication setting position of the levels, process communication lines of 4 settings, triangulation split, right? So sets lines of 1, position of 2, and position of 3 over 4, right? Cross location settings over cross location setting to a mainframe and traction. Direct lines of security line defense, lines of communication and protection, right? So that's 4 signals in position of flux, right? Cross location setting to all lines of process communication across circles and set calculation, right? So that puts lines of tether in a triangulation line connection setting. Process ground center line connection setting to its box frame and triangulation. Okay. Platform communication cross line signal location settings and data formation lines of box locations. And travel inline rotation surface and track location. Complicated stuff, right? All through box triangulation. So that's 43 equals lines of 7 times lines of 12. Okay, equals lines of 24, and position lines equal lines of 144 platform. Sets communication lines of setting and position of process and communicates to a system. Ooh-ah, done my equation. All right. Woo, I'm having so much fun. Is everybody having fun? So you really have to understand how to use your higher self now through location grids and a 144 platform over. Okay? So that's to understand locations, how you use that communication setting. Because you have positive and you have negative, right? Positives here, okay, and negatives here, right? But there's a between cycle. So this is inner, this is outer, right? They have to come together through 144 platform to come together through 24, 48, 72, and 144 platform, right? It says core track and interference location line, center location setting to 72, 48, 24, and settings, right? And then you got 12 line. 12 line is on the outline. That is outer space. That's nebula, okay? So the cross locations in the setting and travels and point lines of graph communicates that position of this program. Okay? That's how it works, right? So then you split the lines of anomaly in position locations of 4 platforms in position of binaries and track location in your system. Okay? So you just go into longitude, latitude, higher lines of strips, and a film strip set design and calculations. There's the primer in the center. Okay? And then you can change lines of communication lines of 4, 8 over 2, puts lines of 2 over 8 over 4, and position lines of 2 in traction. Cross line signals and line condition settings of platforms 1 in position of 2 and 3 settings. All right? Higher levels of platforms, higher lines of position lines of travel. Okay? Very complicated stuff, but a lot of fun. Through 144 platform. All right? We're done. You having fun? I'm just showing you exactly what you guys are coming into now. A process of communications. How to really, really understand the 144 over the 144 of pi. All right? See you in 5.